Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm here today with CEO of WEJO, Richard Barlow. I believe this is the third time talking, so super excited to talk to Mr. Barlow. WEJO is a public company. He's a CEO. He's very busy, so we're very gracious that he gave us some time today. Before we get into everything, we were just talking a little bit off camera about press and media, and I kind of just want to get your quick thoughts on, as a CEO of a public company, how do you think about the media? Are you constantly looking for more awareness? I saw you've been doing more Twitter videos. Like, how do you and your team kind of think about getting the message of WEJO across, given you guys are a public company, but still have to engage with non-traditional forms of media like podcasting?
Yes, I mean, you know, as a small cap business, we need to leverage media. We need to, you know, there's a continual education needed. I started when I first started WEJO, I made, you know, you make dangerous assumptions that just because you know the topic, everyone else does. And even now, most people I talk to and say, did you know most new vehicles sold every year globally have embedded connectivity? And even now, most people I talk to don't appreciate that. You know, you start saying, well, you know, your vehicle may do an OTA, or you may be getting, say, swarm updates to your sat nav. That involves some form of connectivity. So we need to keep educating all markets. And as a small stock, you know, we need to, you know, we our biggest sort of sets of groups of shareholders are retail investors.
Yeah.
So it's important that we keep trying to educate, because as a public company, we are restricted about public disclosure.
Yeah.
So part of the benefit of ongoing education is it becomes ongoing public disclosure. It becomes like, you know, so, you know, we have increased the number of press releases and there's a balance there, because you need consent from your clients, you know, from the OEMs, the motor manufacturers we work with. But we've recognized that the more we inform the market, even on the really small stuff, if we can keep sort of saying, well, you know, this means this benefit to our revenue, this means this benefit to our TAM. And then, you know, and then every quarter we do the more formal stuff, you know, the business updates, you know, so then we can say, you know, okay, right, well, our growth was this, and it tied back to, you know, we talked about, I don't know, last week we did a press release about Toyota and fleet. So, you know, how will that turn into revenue later this year? Well, so the more we can keep informing the market and the more we can reference back, well, that was the point where we first started talking about Toyota. And then now, X many months, years later, whatever it is, this has now become the benefit. This is how it's affected our unit economics on a positive basis. Do you general education is really important.
Do you think retail investors care about press releases, or do you think they need information in a different way to really understand?
I think they care about all information flow. I think people are very savvy. So the more we can tell stories, the more we can empower with content. I think it's important to continue to do this education. You know, if you look at you know, the incredible success of, say, Tesla when they did their public filing in 2010, that was driven by retail interest, and that's because it was an ongoing story. It wasn't supported by institutions to any near the degree. It was the retail that made that stock pop. So I feel really important that we just keep talking and keep repeating the message, and you know, and don't assume anyone knows anything, you know, and you know, because I think the biggest danger you can make is to assume that people will know. You know, you'd assume that, you know, you're driving on the road in the US and you see messaging on the side of the highway. You'd assume there's some really incredible or complex process running behind the scenes on how that messaging must be able to inform the traffic of flows. Behind the scenes, it's quite frightening as to how basic some of the processes are. So, you know, the more we can sort of explain about, well, there's a reason why Texas have spent, you know, have just signed a multi-million-dollar contract with us. And there's a reason why they want real-time data from us, from our TTI product. It's because it's not been done before. You know, one of the things one of the questions we always get asked on every investor presentation, you know, is, you know, we've just announced this business combination. So we're doing a lot of institutional meets at the moment, and every time within 5 minutes, people go, "Oh, you're like Waze." So recently, I've changed our deck and say, rather than waiting to be someone say, "Oh, you like Waze," I go, "Well, no, we're nothing like Waze. Waze collects 10 kilometers a month of data." per active user. We collect about 60, 70 times more than that on all journeys, even the repetitive journeys. People don't tend to use Waze for the repetitive journey, the journey they do every day. They use it for those, those unique journeys. Actually, I do use Waze as a benchmark for every journey I do to compare how our own product does. But so I find it's important to say, well, actually, there's a reason why our product's valuable, is because we see every journey, so we can inform the DOTs of having more accurate messaging. We can help EasyPass understand about how people are using the single driver lanes on highways, for example. So yeah, education, mega important.
So when it comes to like for example, if Joe Rogan asked you to be on the podcast tomorrow, you would say yes in a heartbeat, because you just need as much attention as possible to get the message out there.
Yeah, I'd do anything. I mean, and you've got to be brave. I mean, I've been watching the Coffeezilla podcast recently, and he's been doing this in-depth sort of analysis of Logan Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he's an incredible journalist. I think the analysis he's done of the blockchain ledger. So yeah, Joe Rogan, Coffeezilla, you name it, Harry Stebbings, you name it.
Anyone,
and especially Amit.
Especially Amit. Not as big as those guys yet, but I love it. I appreciate it. Okay. One day. So speaking of the stock, you guys recently announced a press release the other day about, honestly, I'm trying to understand. It's like a de-SPAC. It's a pipe round of funding with TKB. Can you kind of just give us the TLDR on what you guys are doing and why you did it in the first place?
Yeah, so look, in we all know the macroeconomic environment's been tough the last 18 months. You were talking about your own capital raise. The sources of capital that are usually available to high growth stocks are not there in the same way.
Yeah.
So we've had this thing called a plug capital strategy, where we continue to raise capital on the way. Last year, General Motors invested. Sompo, an insurance provider, invested. We've had other investors invest as well. So we raised some capital on the way last year. We can continue to do that, but doing that, you're carrying an overhang on the business, because people know you need to keep raising capital.
Yeah.
So we've been looking for a longer term solution, where we're not relying on the nuances of the markets. The market's been inefficient at times, especially if you're a tech growth stock. So we've been looking at viable alternatives, and and I was looking, and we all know the headlines of the 600 SPACs out there where they're holding money in trust. The general hypothesis is that the trust holders are looking to just earn the interest and then just pull out. They're all they're not long holders. So we reached out and came across the TKB group and built a really good relationship. We've been out together in Los Angeles, and we realized there was actually TKB had a great group of investors as a foundation, and we sort of worked through, well, is it possible? I think there was a headline in Bloomberg saying this is SPAC squared. It's a merger. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant that they're a SPAC, and we're not a SPAC anymore. So we're merging with or we're acquiring TKB, but it's technically a merger. And
that just helps you raise more money.
Yeah, and we get access to balance of cash left in trust after redemption, and we've built an instrument with the bankers to that there is a premium on the money left in trust, and it's, I say, the market has reacted favorably over the last couple of weeks. If you look at our stock, and I can't say more than the basics of, look at our stock has had a positive benefit. Look at TKB's stock, they've had a positive benefit, both in terms of, if the money's priced at $10, and yet at the moment it's, I think, at $10.40. Well, the market's decided that, there's a 4% premium.
Right.
We're offering 11.25. So it's working. And in terms of our own stock, our stock is, I think, 3 times more liquid than it was a month ago. And I think we've had a 20-30% uplift at the moment. Now, things change. It's the 20th of January today. I don't know when you release this, so maybe things will change between now and when you release this recording. But it's a good transaction. It's good for the WEJO shareholders. We need to get rid of this overhang of our balance sheet. We need to show that, the more important things to me is we've shown 200 to 300% growth between 2021 and 2022. So we've not yet done our 10K, so I can't be more accurate than that. We've issued a broad guidance to say we'll do the same growth again in 2023. And in the S4 we'll assert that and continue to show strong growth. So if we can show that, well, actually we're adding more vehicles on platform, where we've been tight on our cost management, we're showing scaling of revenues. This deal then takes us to near cash break even. So it should then help our stock. It should help all WEJO shareholders. And say, I'm not aware of any other SPACs who've had their plug capital strategies being successful as we have in terms of raising capital this last year. Now we're the first ones in 10 years to be able to structure a merger of another SPAC. So, and it's been done successfully before, so 10 years ago. So, but it's a unique instrument.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of the SPACs, quite frankly, they weren't real companies. I would argue that WEJO is a real company that has done real things, that's actually growing. So it makes sense to be able to raise capital in this type of way without having to go back to different investors. Last quick question on this. You said you had like meetings in Los Angeles. Were these meetings like at dinner where you were kind of convincing the TKB group of the mission of WEJO and they ultimately had to believe in that, and that's how the deal got done?
We'd done a lot of that beforehand. So, we'd done numerous Zoom meetings, but it's important, it's a team effort. It is. And one of the things we learned from the previous process is that you're going to spend a lot of time together, and you need to be able to have open correspondence, communication with each other. And, the best thing about building a successful business is about communication. So it was important for us just to spend that solid time together. So no, it wasn't just actually, there was a dinner at some point, but there was long time just sat in a boardroom environment, just saying, just going through all the details of the business and, and understanding that, we've made an announcement of the transaction. There's been a proxy filed. There's we've got it, but we're now going to do the S4 filings. There's all sorts of things we're going to do over the next 3-4 months. And it's hard work. Right. When you're doing hundreds of pages of filings, and by the way, you want to control and manage your costs. So it's not just the easy answer of just deferring to your lawyers and just letting it all happen, but actually being very controlled on how we're going to be successful together. It starts with building a solid foundation, which I don't think you can do over Zoom.
Right. I agree. All right, let's get into some fun stuff. Can you speak to the news work you're doing with Microsoft in relation to adopting connected vehicle fleets? This news came out a couple of weeks ago. This was super, super interesting. So kind of I know you partnered with Microsoft a little bit more in the past, but what does this new latest thing look like?
Yeah, so Microsoft is a great partner. We use them as an environment we use Azure. They're also commercial clients, so they buy services from us. We've talked about that in the past. And they said, hey, would you like to be one of our showcase partners at CES? So to be at the center of CES on their exhibition stand and being endorsed by Microsoft to their blue chip clients. And I was talking to the global head of automotive today at Microsoft, and he said, you are the only automotive data marketplace we recommend to any of our OEM clients.
Wow.
And to have that sort of gold standard, that premium sort of promotion. We're now in their marketplace as well, more broadly as a proposition. That's amazing. That to have that sort of that preeminent sort of support from one of the world's biggest companies. And
what is Microsoft doing in the automotive space exactly? Like, what are they selling?
So they're providing, there is an arms race now in terms of the general sort of headline for cloud vendors is that they've managed to win 10% of all IT and there's 90% to go. Yeah. Automotive, it's even more fragmented than that. So there's huge opportunities for cloud vendors to be more embedded in the OEMs. The OEMs have historically built their own built their own data centers, their own environments. They've been running very antiquated systems. So there's huge cloud opportunities. And the amazing thing about connected vehicle data that I still find incredible is that motor manufacturers are amazing during the R&D phase. And then the moment the vehicle leaves R&D and starts being manufactured at volume and then leaves dealers, the OEMs or the motor manufacturers lose contact, so to speak. They don't know how the vehicles are really performing. They get, say, warranty or impairment reports from dealers every quarter, so that they see the JD Power report, so they know how their vehicles are performing on the road. the data can report in seconds what's really going on. So we've seen a batch of vehicles driving around with airbags failing at speed. And what do? Do you wait for a fatality or wait for a dealer to start saying, hey, we're seeing a funny number of vehicles coming through that where airbags are just going off for no reason? Or do you get the data in real time to be able to do that? So in terms of Microsoft, they're very much saying, we're not trying to get into the OS of the car. We're not building our own driverless cars. We're not competing against you. We are a neutral, independent environment where we can provide hosting to various sort of automotive software dependencies, and they've sort of now positioned us as being their preeminent automotive data marketplace. But it's interesting. It's early days, but the fact we've now got that C-suite exposure by Microsoft, the fact that we've been invited to I think we were one of 6 or 7 other vendors on the CES stand, but we got proper airtime from them.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. I mean, the cloud market, obviously, it's one could argue that we're still in our infancy, and it just means there's so much growth to go. So for you guys to be one of the premium marketplaces that Microsoft is recommending in their cloud infrastructure, I mean, that's just incredible. Which goes to my next question about CES. I mean, you talked about it a little bit, but we talked about branding in the beginning. Do you kind of see CES as one of these really strong opportunities to build the brand? Obviously, being one of 7 on Microsoft's stage, that's a big deal. But do you see these events as like a cornerstone of getting the WEJO name out there?
No, I mean, it's not brand building for me. I mean, we have a KPI internally about how many appointments you have to pre-book before as a WEJO person you can be at an event. So I see any event as an ROI measurement.
Right.
If you think you can turn up, open your suitcase, say, hey, we've got some, you're going to get an awful lot of people who are going to walk past your stand who are going to be wanting to, I call it tire kicking. They're going to, or they're either going to want to have some random hypothesis they want to be proven that is right or wrong, or they want to tell you that you really are wrong about and they believe they're really right. So we use these opportunities to build deeper relationships with clients we've already got, or as a focal point for that next meeting with a prospect. But as I say, we have an ROI measurement about how, if you're going to attend an event, you better have enough. Albeit that did go wrong last year on the COVID year. So
right.
Last year we Microsoft announced, I think a week before CES, they weren't going to be at CES anymore. So I said to everyone, right, unless we've lost the stand. So unless you can deliver X many meetings, then you shouldn't go, because it's going to cost us a lot of money in travel, and hotels at CES are amazingly expensive. It's a very expensive event to be at in every way you're measuring. So by the end of it, I had about 6 people who were supposed to be going to say, look, we can't get enough meetings to justify the expenditure. And I'd said, catch-all, I'll do whatever you can't do, because I've got meetings. So I was seeing Palantir, for example.
Yeah.
And next thing is I had 28 meetings to do. So I literally did 28 meetings on behalf of everyone at WEJO, because I'd said, look, if you're not doing, I think it's more than 5 meetings, then we can't, it's just the travel just doesn't justify it. So suddenly I did 28 meetings alongside, I was meeting Sharma at Palantir and doing my own meetings that I'd already pre-booked.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. That makes I'm so curious about it as someone who has my own startup, and I'm thinking about brand building, and me, I guess, a little bit more in the digital age, given the platform that I'm building is more content oriented. It's all about how much content can we create and how many people can we get it in front of, which goes to my next question. You made a video on Twitter about climate change, and this is the first time I saw you in front of the camera kind of talking about climate change and the intersection with WEJO. So can you speak to that? The climate change market is many trillions. It's a big data problem. Do you see WEJO playing a role over the next decade in helping to resolve some of the issues caused by climate change?
Yeah, I get a little bit frustrated about how EV is positioned to be the holy grail of everything. And then if you actually drill down to well, how it's not just the simple stuff like, well, how's the energy being generated in the first place to support the EV, or how's the lithium being mined? Those are 2 big issues. But tire pollution's a big issue. a lot of tires in EVs weren't manufactured for EVs, and the rubber's not being molded in a way to be able to cope with the infinitely greater torque versus combustion engine.
Wow.
Tire pollution is a big issue, and and that's just one example of getting data from vehicles and really understanding about the behaviors of vehicles. It's not just being able to navigate drivers to be more energy efficient, or to navigate drivers to be safer drivers, but actually it's to help inform, say, smart cities, or to help steering groups to understand about, well, what is really going on. What are people really breathing in? So for us, data, we have this mantra of data for good, and we mean that. And and it means that we won't cynically sell data to the highest bidder. We won't start doing implied personal information tagging, for example, on vehicles or anything like that. We're very much about, there has to be a benefit to society, there has to be a benefit to the creator of the data. Obviously there has to be an upside to the custodian and the conduit of the data, the OEM.
Right.
But ultimately, it starts with, is there some good in society from this data being shared? And and there's a lot of new data coming from people are fundamentally changing their habits because of COVID. Pre-COVID, people drove to work every day. And they'd be very happy to drive to a local airport, do a 300-mile flight to another city, and then they'd hire another vehicle, and they'd be very inefficient. Whereas now they're doing that slightly longer journey, and they're fundamentally changing how they're doing those journeys as well. And data provides a lot of insight that there is no historic data that can answer those things, other than just building new models, which is what we're doing.
Yeah, it's interesting you talked about tire pollution, because I mean, there's obviously a lot of gripes with the EV manufacturing process and how that potentially could be worse for climate change. But the small nuances like tire pollution and the lack of data that we have on understanding tires and the journeys that they take, I mean, that even being able to solve percentages of that problem could make a massive dent in this industry coming forward. And I'm assuming there's
No, go on.
I was gonna say, I'm assuming there's tons of other little nuances that we don't know about that data can tell us, with something like WEJO.
Yeah, I mean, vehicle failures and part failures, which are the consequences of a part failing in a vehicle. So I mentioned to you before about airbag deployments in vehicles at speed for no reason. The consequences of that in terms of safety, data helps that. The parts failures in vehicles, seat failures, transmission failures, all these things, real-time data helps the motor manufacturers make quicker decisions. And if you look at what the OEMs costs are, one of the biggest costs is warranty. Is every new vehicle they build, they have a percentage that they have on the balance sheet of potential sort of warranty claims for that group of vehicles. So if you can help the OEMs reduce their warranty impairments and fundamentally improve the profitability of their business, which is obviously benefit to shareholders, then that's a big winner. That data can massively help. If you can help OEMs with the data, help them understand about how to better manufacture a vehicle. Better manufacture is there's all sorts of reasons. There's all sorts of outputs of that but then data can solve that.
Right. The one thing I wanted to talk about next from this is, I think on the earnings press release, you guys talked about you're bringing in more public sector clients. Can you speak a little bit about why you're going after the public sector a little bit even more, and sort of what is the trajectory you see in terms of them being able to help grow the business as well, outside of just private commercial?
Yeah, I mean, public sector is important to us. There are thousands of city offices that focus on traffic flows around cities, and if we use Purdue University, they're a great example of a public sector organization who are looking to sort of do research on behalf of local government. They'll say to you, before we came along with our data, it'd take them 2 years to understand flows of traffic, whereas now they can do the same. They can see the same sort of analysis in 45 minutes. So departments of transport are asking us questions such as, well, if we change this road from 2 lanes to 1 lane, for example, how would that affect the flow of traffic? Can you tell us where you're seeing the changes of flows of traffic on a per hour basis? Can you see where people are making, say, illegal turns in the road, not to sort of to prosecute the driver who's doing those legal turns, but actually to identify where there are fundamentally dangerous road intersections? We're seeing that. We see intersections where we can pretty much predict now where we believe there's going to be serious crashes, because we're just seeing people making ill-informed decisions about how they're going to change, how they're going to drive at certain times of day based on their own sort of views on traffic flow. So DOTs are huge for us, and the public sector, government departments, all are after live trends of data, and only we do that in genuine live trends.
Yeah, it's interesting because if you're a municipality or a town, I'm assuming if you want especially with the EV change that's happening, right? Like if we're going to get rid of gas stations and replace them with EV grids, and like the level of data that's needed to understand what's happening to your grid as a municipality or town, it would need something that gives a real-time marketplace to understand those trends and those analyses. And that's cool because every government in the world needs that, right? Every public sector in the world. It's a very big market for you guys to go after.
Well, on the Infrastructure Act, I think $7 billion has been budgeted for recharging, and that's not a lot of money, actually. Yeah. That's you can't just take a grid of a city and say, right, well, we need to improve the infrastructure of the grid on every street. There's going to need to be a lot of intelligence to know about where installation should be, and we're doing that more. And then in terms of the intelligence, when cars when the energy company can determine when the car should be charged rather than the OEM determining that's going to be a game changer. Because there's not going to be enough energy for everything. So when the energy company knows a vehicle only needs to do 40 miles tomorrow, knows it's going to be plugged in for the next 7 hours, then when the energy company can start determining, and there'll be a value exchange with the driver for having that control of intelligence sat with the energy provider, that's going to be a game changer.
Do you think WEJO can be one of the most valuable companies in the world? Not even from a financial perspective, just do you think you're going to provide a lot of value once people find out how much they need this data?
We're here to make a difference. I mean, if you think about, we've launched our AV platform, and we've had some really interesting inbound demand for that now. And actually, one of the focuses has been safety. Can we be in effect the impartial assessor of safety of AVs? Right. Can we take the different data from different AVs out there, different OEMs, and share and appraise as to how all these AVs are going to interact with each other in the future? Ultimately, most vehicles sold in the world are already having better connectivity. The next stage is that they all need to be going to a centralized platform to help to share insights. V2X gives you some sharing, but there needs to be broader sharing of data as well. And I believe WEJO can be that platform. WEJO, I established it to be a brand that can be trusted. So I want it to be as trusted as, say, Bluetooth in the car for hands-free. So there needs to be a platform to enable mobility, so that you could summon a car ride to take you to a train station. You want that same mobility platform to then maybe pay for your tickets to be on the train, and then when you get to the destination, then maybe you want to then get an e-scooter. If there can be a broad mobility platform that enables that whole sort of handling of all these transactions, and I think that we're doing something incredible for society, and we should be the backbone for that.
How much of that valuableness and changing of the world is split between the execution of you and the company and the market catching up to realizing they need this product, and them naturally kind of Googling, and then WEJO comes up, right? Like, do you think it's a mix of like you have to wait a little bit till the market realizes, or are you guys just going out there and going to take it eventually?
So one of the things we did when it became clear that the access to capital wasn't going to be as what it was, we focused on revenues that will come in now. So the revenues have been focused on primarily traffic. Traffic is a big, huge opportunity. So there's thousands of suspects out there. They want to buy traffic flow data and traffic insights. We're insurance, and then we're audience and media measurement. That is it. So it's all about focus. It doesn't mean that we haven't got an eye on innovation. Doesn't mean that we won't do strategic sort of investments in AV planning, for example, AV safety, for example, or EV planning, or edge-based processing of data. Edge-based processing of data is going to be a necessity to be able to get access to the right data. But there's always a risk as a small company that you overinvest before you get that first client. So we've been strategic. So we've done sprints of work. We've then established the demand. We've established the value. We'll deliver those. We'll deliver those first contracts that then start, frankly, self-funding the scale of those new markets. You could spend a lot of money building a lot of markets that never drive revenue, and some of our competitors have been guilty of that. They talk a great talk, and then you look at their revenues, and the revenues are what, $20,000 a quarter or something. And and that's the reality. You've got to, so we've been robust, say, in insurance. I was adamant that we didn't just go down the UBI death spiral that a lot of the companies have gone into. We kept saying to motor manufacturers, don't talk to us if you just want us to be a scoring platform. Scoring's commoditized, it's flawed, and actually the actuaries are only interested in scoring poor drivers. Well, that's a niche of a niche, and the majority of data is coming from newer vehicles where you've got a more of a prime audience. Well, by virtue of that, they're being more prime, they're safer drivers, and therefore their premiums can be lower. So you've got diminishing returns. So we push back against both the insurers and the OEMs, saying UBI is not the answer for this. It needs to be what we call end-to-end insurance. It needs to be the fact that on average, 7% of vehicles are involved with some form of collision every year. That's the value play. The value play is claim shrinkage. The value play is reducing it from 2 toes to 1 toe, reducing the amount of time the vehicle's left in storage, reducing the time to order the parts, because the body shop can be more efficient at getting the data. So we very much thought about where's the value now, and if we need to wait, then we will park the budget, and we won't spend it till they will come. We'll spend it when there's inbound demand.
Right. No, that makes more sense, especially being strategic on which initiatives to focus on. All right, last 2 questions. First, for my audience, of course, Palantir. So can you give us any little updates you have on sort of your partnership with them? And I know you guys announced an EV charging infrastructure software a while ago. Are you guys still working on that? Is that coming to fruition of any sense, or kind of how is the partnership going with them?
Yeah, so EVOS has been something we launched, was it about a year ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was about a year ago.
This time, January, yeah.
And I'm not sure we've broken down in any public filings what our EV revenues are.
Right.
It's there. It's our relationship with Palantir is strong. They made a comment that they broadly made a mistake on their SPAC investments. Yeah. I don't believe that applies to all SPACs. I think it applies to us. I think the relationship. I mean, when I saw that, I thought, well, can I put my hand up and say I think we're, Palantir have said that we're one of their 2 or maybe SPAC investments that they're happy with.
Yeah.
Our relationship's there. It's I hope we can do more announcements this year. We use Foundry in a big way. Foundry is going to be a way that of us being able to do faster deployments of products at a lower cost point than some of our more aging competitors out there who don't have access to the data asset and have got legacy platforms that are going to be a detriment to new product deployments. So Palantir, great partner.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, they had to make that SPACs comment because a lot of the SPACs, if you just look at the stock prices, are obviously down. So at some level, you can't keep telling the market this was a great idea when it wasn't. But I think the nuance in that is there are a couple companies. I mean, you guys, Lilium is one of those companies I really enjoy. Blackstone, Sarcos Robotics, Tritium Charging. I mean, there's a good handful of them that I think have a real shot to make it through this macroeconomic storm that we're in. And really prove some real results, especially if you look into the nuances of how much they're growing, just like you guys.
And stick to your solid foundations. That are the foundations of our businesses. Is that we're focused primarily on traffic, as a data asset, and Foundry as a platform, be able to present real-time outcomes to a number of industries, including government. Well, government is a huge opportunity for Palantir generally, as we all know. So, you know, we're now presenting the foundry outcomes from that data asset that no one else has got. So, you know, I think it's been we built a solid foundation with Palantir the last couple of years, and you know, this year could be really interesting for us both.
Got it. All right, last question I had for you to end it off is, do your kids think you're cool? Like, you're a CEO of a public company. Do they?
Oh,
do
hell
they
no!
recognize
Yeah, hell
how
no.
cool you are?
Do you want to go and get Henry and ask him if he thinks I'm cool? Yeah. I think what Henry would say is, if you give me $10 of Roblox, whatever they're called, then I'll say whatever you want me to say. But otherwise, yeah, no, definitely not cool. He thinks cars are cool. He thinks the AV we built is cool. He wants to know when he's getting his own AV. But generally, no, kids don't think your parents are cool ever.
Because I think you're super cool because you're CEO of a public company. You know, I'm like, oh, I wonder if your kids like recognize like how big of a deal you
Oh,
are.
he doesn't care. No, he doesn't care, and I don't want him to care either. I just want to see me as dad who, you know, who puts his foot down sometimes and makes him do the homework. In fact, I won't be cool tonight because Henry's got to finish his Paddington Bear homework. So there we go.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. CEO Richard Barlow. I don't know if you noticed, I'm wearing the WEJO hat right here. I've literally worn this.
Oh yeah,
from the Las Vegas.
It's a bit cooler as well today. Yeah.
Well, it's a great hat.
Thank you for wearing the branding.
It fits me well.
Yeah, I've got.
Because it's I think it's a Nike hat. I should got a really good hat.
I should have put my Palantir hoodie on that I've got upstairs. So
yeah. There we go. All right. Well, wishing you the best
Thank
of
you.
luck. I'm sure we'll meet again probably in a month or two, a couple months, and we'll talk again. And yeah, it's awesome progress you guys are doing. And
that's good.
Looking forward to seeing more.
Yeah, thank you for your time. Thanks, Amit. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Richard. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.